Digo, obviamente, Golfo de México es reconocido el nombre por Naciones Unidas, es un organismo de Naciones Unidas, pero el siguiente, ¿por qué no le llamamos América Mexicana? Se oye bonito, ¿no? ¿Verdad que sí? Desde 1607, la Constitución de Apatzingán era de América Mexicana. Entonces, vamos a llamarle América Mexicana. Se oye bonito, ¿no? Y Golfo de México, pues, desde 1607 y además está reconocido internacionalmente. Bueno, ya. Aprovecho antes de, porque sé que me lo van a preguntar. Yo creo que ayer el presidente Trump le malinformaron, con todo respeto al presidente Trump, porque yo creo que le informaron que en México todavía gobernaba Felipe Calderón y García Luna, pero no, en México gobierna el pueblo. Bueno, adelante.
That was Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, responding to this statement by Trump.
Mexico is really in trouble, a lot of trouble. Very dangerous place. And we're going to be announcing at a future date pretty soon. We're going to change, because we do most of the work there and it's ours. We're going to be changing, sort of the opposite of Biden, where he's closing everything up, essentially getting rid of $50 to $60 trillion worth of assets. We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name. And it's appropriate. It's appropriate. And Mexico has to stop allowing millions of people to pour into our country. They can stop them. And we're going to put very serious tariffs on Mexico and Canada, because Canada, they come through Canada too, and the drugs that are coming through are at record numbers.
Yup, that's right. The guy who swept into office amid promises to get the price of eggs down is now laser focused squarely on renaming the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. Yeah, I can just feel the price of groceries plummeting as the result of this. And I'm sorry, but is this really what Republicans were so desperate to do? To usher in shallow displays of patriotism? Slapping the name America on the Gulf of Mexico? That's what you were so desperate for? Look, I love America and I have dedicated my life to fighting for it, but if you are so insecure in your love for this country that you feel the need to vomit red, white, and blue all over everything and shove the bald eagle down everybody's throats, then perhaps the problem isn't America, it is your own very, very fragile worldview. Of course, fragile Republicans shoving their views down everybody else's throats is a dime a dozen in today's GOP. Here, for example, is Texas Republican Brandon Gill.
Conference yesterday, Trump was asked if he'd rule out using military force to get control of Greenland and the Panama Canal, and Trump would not rule that out. How would acquiring that land help everyday Americans better afford their day-to-day expenses?
Well, first of all, Brianna, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Listen, President Trump is bringing us into a golden age of America. This is the new manifest destiny, reacquiring the Panama Canal, acquiring Greenland, renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. This is the light of America expanding. You know, we have a very clear strategic interest geopolitically, both in Greenland and in the Panama Canal. The Panama Canal, as you know, was created with the blood, toil, tears, and sweat of American citizens. We put an enormous amount of money into it. I don't think we ever should have relinquished control of the Panama Canal.
Yeah, apparently it's not enough to love America as it is. We need to shove America down everybody's throats. We need to rename bodies of water for America and expand territory by force for America and launch wars for America. Is this what Republicanism has devolved into? Insecure little warmongers and provocateurs? These people are like human chihuahuas trying to hump the legs of the rest of the world in their desperation to assert their dominance. And look, if this all feels a little too circusy, that's probably by design. Donald Trump may very well be looking to distract everybody, which is a tactic that he employs often, to prevent us from focusing on some of his more nefarious behavior, to prevent us from focusing on the fact that he has nominated dangerous people to his cabinet and his administration like Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard and Pete Hegseth, to prevent us from focusing on his efforts to undermine NATO to the benefit of his buddy Vladimir Putin in Russia, to prevent us from focusing on the potential trade war that he's about to launch. Donald Trump is no stranger to setting off fireworks over here to prevent us from looking over there. And that's a point, by the way, that Chuck Schumer made right here.
I want to make a brief comment about the president-elect's press conference yesterday. Donald Trump throws out a lot of strange and rather random ideas on a regular basis. He did it yesterday when suggesting we rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. Well, let me say this. I'd agree to working with Donald Trump on renaming the Gulf of Mexico only if he first agrees to work with us on an actual plan to lower costs for Americans. That's what the American people want us to focus on first, not on renaming bodies of water. Our priorities, our democratic priorities, are so much more closely aligned with the concerns of the American people than Donald Trump seemed to be. The incoming president knows he has a tall task ahead of him. He spent years on the campaign trail making outlandish promises he won't be able to keep. In fact, he's getting rich to do the opposite of what he's getting ready to do the opposite of what he promised by cutting tax cuts for the very, very wealthy. Donald Trump is in over his head. So he's doing what he always does in times like this, distract America with crazy ideas. Renaming the Gulf of Mexico may be a zany new idea, but it isn't going to help people save money at the grocery store. It's not going to make trips to the pharmacy more affordable. It's not going to help anyone find a good-paying job. Donald Trump says these things because it will get him attention and make him sound like a tough guy. If Donald Trump wants to rename an ocean to sound more patriotic, I'd say we'll help him on one condition and only on one condition. Let's come up with a real plan first, not a concept of a plan to lower prices for Americans. Let's do that first. Then Donald Trump can have his fun. I yield the floor and note the absence of, I yield the floor.
The reality is that if ever there was a bait and switch, it was done to Trump's own voters by Trump himself. If we're giving them the benefit of the doubt and believing that these were people who were hurting in this high inflation, high corporate greed environment, and Trump promised relief, that is not in the slightest what they're actually getting. What they are getting is a dumpster fire tucked into a shit show. It is a budding autocrat seeking to feed his insatiable ego by slapping our name onto things for the sake of beating our chest. Not to mention his promises to take, possibly by the use of military force, sovereign countries that don't belong to us, or worse, that belong to our own NATO allies. None of this is going to bring down the cost of eggs. Quite the opposite. But this is what Trump does. He promises you one thing, and only what he's gotten what he needs from you will he reveal his true colors. He is not in office to help you. He is in office to help himself. Some things never change. What Trump is doing here is chief among them. Before you go, just a quick note, if you'd like to see more of my content, which is always free of advertising, sponsorships, and paywalls, please make sure to subscribe to this channel using the subscribe button right here on the screen. And if you'd like to support my work even further, you can grab a copy of my instant #1 New York Times selling book, Shameless, available for sale right now. That link is also on the screen. Thanks so much for watching.